All right, Volkanovski and TKZ normally, and even up for a little while, this was, in my mind, an easy pick. Like, no disrespect to the Korean Zombie, but Alexander Volkanovski's established himself as quite the champion. I mean, defeating Max Holloway twice, even with the second one being controversial, we've talked about it a million times. Okay, blah, 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 we get it. Beating Brian Ortega in the fashion that he did, coming back from adversity like that, ocean deep in a guillotine, noose tight in a triangle. I was going to say leg lock for some reason. Noose tight in a triangle. Got out of both of them and arguably, in my mind, won the round. He got in 2 fight-ending submissions, broke out of them, and rained down hell from above with his fist. It was like in that third round, after he got out of that triangle, Volkanovski turned into like a bomber. He was just a flying fortress, just dropping bombs at the end of it. I thought it was going to be over, honestly. But all that to say, Volkanovski's a mean dude. He's a tough guy, nice guy, but he's a tough guy. Really hard to beat. And the Korean Zombie's also tough and all that, but MMA math doesn't add up. But we saw him against Brian Ortega, the same Brian Ortega that Volkanovski defeated soundly, despite hiccups in there. That Brian Ortega dismantled the Korean Zombie on anywhere it went. I still visualize that spinning back elbow that T-City imparted on the Korean Zombie. I mean, brutal. The only reason that fight wasn't eventually stopped was because of the toughness of the Korean Zombie. So, why am I being so hesitant about this? Well, I'll give you this. I'm picking Volkanovski still. However, little gem thrown in, I saw earlier, the Korean Zombie is going to train with Henry Cejudo. Now, one of Volkanovski's best weapons against the Korean Zombie would be wrestling. Sure, the Korean Zombie's got submissions. Sure, he knows how to stay on his feet and all that. He's not a typical guy. He's an upper echelon guy. He can handle himself. But Volkanovski's got great pressure, whether it's on the feet or from top position. He's a damage dealer, and he can take guys down. He can put them up in if he can't take them down, put them in the clinch and try and trip them, try and spin them out, down away from the fence and take them down. He's a grappler. He may not look like it with all his highlights, with all the striking, but he's a grappler. A control, at least. So is Henry Cejudo. Henry Cejudo is even better at that than Volkanovski. Volkanovski's a great wrestler. Doesn't have a gold medal in it. Henry Cejudo's a great wrestler. Does have a gold medal in it. Henry Cejudo's not fighting Alexander Volkanovski, but he's almost now imparted himself as a proxy. He's having a proxy war with Alexander Volkanovski via the Korean Zombie. He may not be able to fight. Dana won't let him fight Alexander Volkanovski. Fine. I'll train the guy that beats you to prove that I don't even need to fight you to beat you. That's crazy. Henry's taking it seriously, and you know what? I saw the countdown today for it, and the embedded and all that. Henry did say, TKZ, the Korean Zombie, he's got some areas to catch up in. There's some areas he's behind, but presumably so, to the point where eventually Volkanovski would be able to overcome him and surmount him in those abilities. But with him teaching that, the Korean Zombie's been around for a while. Soaks things up. May not be as young as he once was, but he's still doing good. He may only be on a one-fight win streak for Dan Ige, but, I mean, if he can learning something, he trains wrestling presumably every day or at least every week. He knows about whizzers and takedowns and sprawling, but so it's hard to necessarily exponentially increase your wrestling just by doing the same thing with the same schedule over and over. It's more of a normal climb than just a shoot up. You train with Henry Cejudo, who knows the ins and outs of wrestling. He knows more about wrestling than probably most people on the planet. And he imparts these little nuggets with you that you weren't even thinking about wrestling, about position, about this, that, balance, and stuffing takedowns. All of a sudden, the Korean Zombie's chances just shot up a lot more. But that means they shot up from here to maybe here. I'm not saying that Henry Cejudo can single-handedly just train the Korean Zombie. I don't know how long the Korean Zombie was there for, but I can't imagine it was more than 6 months, per se. And Not that you need 6 months to blah blah blah, but I personally don't think the Korean Zombie's been there long enough to fully absorb the knowledge that Henry's dropped on him, all of it, to fully absorb all of the knowledge that Henry's dropped on him. But he's absorbed enough to know, or he's absorbed enough knowledge about wrestling, stopping takedowns, yada yada, to make the fight more competitive, in my opinion. Before, it was a simple Volkanovski victory. Now we've got a likely Volkanovski victory, but what if the Korean Zombie's able to stop those takedowns? Well, I mean, Volkanovski could pick him apart on the field. Really? Maybe. That's a possible way it could go. Korean Zombie's got a lot of finishes. Got a lot of knockout finishes. Seen a lot of highlights of those knockout finishes, and a lot of them are a lot more recent than people might be thinking. I know he had the fight. He's been fighting since forever, and he was in the WEC in 2011, whatever. He's got a lot of knockout. Sure, he didn't knock out Danny Gay in his last fight. He handled him well, and Danny Gay's a tough guy. I mean, Calvin Kattar couldn't finish Danny Gay. What do you want? What more do you want from him? I won't go too long on this, but Henry Cejudo has inserted himself, has escalated his conflict with the 145-pound champion Alexander Volkanovski by training the Korean Zombie to fight Alexander Volkanovski as a proxy. He's using the Korean Zombie as a proxy in a positive way. He's not manipulating him or anything. He's helping him out. He came over, asked to train. He's trained. Now, Henry Cejudo's got a soldier that's going in there to fight his rival, and Alexander Volkanovski is Henry Cejudo's rival. Henry Cejudo, if you gave him the opportunity, he would fight for the 145 pound, and then he would be truly Triple C or C4. I do like C4, but that is very interesting because regardless of the result on Saturday, the conflict between Volkanovski and Henry Cejudo is heating up. Whether Volkanovski wins and trounces him, he'll say something about Henry Cejudo. He'll mention, maybe it's not the first thing he'll say, maybe it's not the second or the third or even the fourth, but eventually he'll get to Henry Cejudo and he'll have something to say. And Henry Cejudo will be all of it, especially if the Korean Zombie wins. You'll never hear the end of it from Henry. And even if it's a close fight, a barn burner, that makes Henry look all the more better. And it's very interesting because I feel like seeds of a future conflict, a future full-out conflict are being planted here. Henry Cejudo's got his proxy army in the shape of the Korean Zombie, and he's commanding him to go forward and attack Alexander Volkanovski to go take his belt. Very interesting. I'm really loving Henry Cejudo's post-fight career. I hope it's not fully over, but I do enjoy his antics out there. And you know what? We don't know anything could happen. Although, I will say, I'm pretty sure it's pretty likely that Volkanovski will win. In my mind, I don't think TKZ's learned, or has been able to absorb enough. That being said, if he keeps going there, maybe he could change himself into a completely different fighter and go even further. But Volkanovski wins. Here's how I think it's going to go. I think they're going to go like this for the first couple of rounds. Call it 3/4 of the way through round 2 to round 3. I think it's going to be like this. Volkanovski's doing good, then the Korean Zombie's doing good. Volkanovski lands a shot, then Korean Zombie lands a shot. Volkanovski pushes him up against the fence, Korean Zombie gets out of the fence. Tit for tat, back and forth, up and down. I think near the end of the second or in the third, Volkanovski's going to do something impactful. Whether that's a big strike landed, or he finally breaks through and gets the big slam takedown, or pulls him down to the ground, whatever he's got to do. Something big and impactful will happen at the end of round 2 or sometime in round 3, my mind, that will make the fight go like this to like this. Volkanovski will gain the clear edge, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to a decision. I'm not necessarily predicting a decision, though I think we will see one, so I guess I am predicting a decision, but I think Volkanovski either lands something impactful, whether it's a takedown or a strike, that it's going to set the tone for the rest of the fight after that and give him the clear victories, particularly in the championship rounds, if it goes there. But who the hell knows? Not me, as we've seen many times now.